I had originally recorded a different video today, but because it is International Transgender Day of Visibility, I decided that instead I was going to answer several questions that had been posted on a picture on Facebook about the trans experience. It's kind of an omnibus, so here we go. I hope this helps you understand. Question number 1, has being trans been an obstacle in your life with friends, family, work, etc.? So, yes, in general, I would say yes, it has. It caused my divorce, which probably would have come about anyway. It's the reason that I can't re-enlist in the military. For those of you that aren't aware, I am a United States Marine infantry person, and that is very important to my life, or was very important to my life, but it's a big portion of how I identify myself as a human being. But it has also been an obstacle because in personal training, not a lot of people are interested in having a transgender personal trainer, except other transgender or queer people. So it's a limited market already. It's also been an obstacle as far as modeling and sex work and BDSM and all that sort of thing. So in any industry in which aesthetics and body culture are a thing, so particularly in modeling, yes, it has, because we are living in an age when body positivity is more prevalent than when I was younger. So I'm grateful for that, but even in this era of body positivity, we still have sort of a strike system. You get kind of a free pass on one, maybe two things, and that's it. So I'm transgender, I'm 34, and I am not anorexic, at least not in appearance. I do in fact have anorexia nervosa, and I struggle with eating disorders, but I don't have the appearance and the body type of someone who stereotypically has that disorder. I haven't won the battle, but I am winning. Anyway, so being transgender is a strike against me, because that's my allotment of body positivity that I'm allowed per the industries. You don't see a lot of models who are transgender and overweight, who are transgender and older, who are overweight and older. Overweight. I don't consider myself overweight, I'm a healthy weight. But, you know, being transgender is the strike against me. That's, well, that's all your body positivity allotment. So it's hard to find work outside of alt modeling and fetish modeling. And even there, it can be difficult. I have to sell myself very well. As far as friends, I lost a lot of friends when I came out, particularly within the communities of law enforcement and military, for obvious reasons. How long have I known? Definitively, I've known about a year. No, about 2 years. About 2 years. 2018 springtime is when it hit me and I figured it out. But looking back on my life, I've really known since middle school, when it first popped up, when I first had an interest in expressing my gender as female, wearing women's clothing, identifying as female, using she, her pronouns, going by a feminine name. But that was come or go, and it was very fluid. I was very gender fluid at that point because I was trying to find who I was, and it was a lot more acceptable for me to get behind the idea that I was just a strange goth child than that I was a woman. But looking back on it, there have been 1,000 pieces that have fallen into place and made it really obvious. Oh my gosh, how did I not see this sooner? What are my pronouns? She, her, unless I'm being violent, in which case my pronouns are it, its, and I'm the only person I know that uses those. For example, she is a model. It is going to beat the... How did you pick your name? I have been Norse heathen, a Satru, for many years, over a decade, probably closer to 15 years now. And I have been a devotee of Odin for a very long time. Odin has always been very central to me, very key and critical. As I started to transition and started to get more in touch with my feminine side, Freya became a much more central part of my life and my belief system. She's the goddess of boundaries. She is the penultimate shield maiden. She is queen of the Valkyries. She is she that holds the line and stops the advance of the enemy. Half of all the slain in battle go to her hall, Folkvanger, where they are trained and prepared as the defenders who will protect the 9 realms from the forces of evil in the Twilight of the Gods, the Ragnarok. And that is the Norse belief. Most people know about Valhalla, which is Odin's hall, but most people don't know about Folkvanger, Freya's hall. What's my favorite dinosaur? The Spinosaurus is considered to be the largest and deadliest predator to live during the dinosaur age, and therefore it is my favorite dinosaur. It was also one of the few dinosaurs and one of the only predators that was capable of chasing you down on land and into the ocean. So there really was no escape unless you could fly. Why would you want to be a guy or girl? Well, I wouldn't want to be a guy. It's terrible. Why would I want to be a girl? I don't want to be. I am. It's that simple. I don't want to be either one. I just want to exist. I want to be comfortable in my skin. I want to feel like I can look in the mirror and know who I'm talking to and who I'm looking at. I want what's in here to match what's out here. And at this point in my life, the only way that I can do that is by putting on wigs and a ton of makeup. I'm trying to match what's in my mind and who I am inside with who the world sees. I don't want to be a guy. I don't want to be a girl. I just want to be me. I just want to be accepted and be free to be myself and live my most authentic life. What does AMAB or AFAB mean? AMAB or AFAB. They are regarded by a lot of people as derogatory terms, and they mean assigned male at birth or assigned female at birth. A lot of times they're used in contexts to sort of invalidate a person's gender. I don't think that makes the words inherently bad or the acronyms inherently bad, because it's useful in describing who you are. I am assigned male at birth, but I'm a transgender woman. I am a woman who was AMAB, and that tells you a lot about me. But mostly what that should tell you is that the doctors were wrong, and the whole process of assigning a gender to a child at birth is flawed, and we know that now. We didn't know that when I was born. It's not how things work. What do you feel like you missed out on most in your childhood if you transitioned later? I feel like, honestly, I don't think I missed out on all that much. My mother is not particularly good at makeup, although she is very good at hair, but I had long hair during the formative years of my life, and so she was quite adept at helping me with that. Honestly, I wasn't allowed to do sports when I was a kid because my father believed it would make me aggressive and competitive. Let that be a lesson to all you parents. What you deny consumes you. My father didn't want me to be aggressive and competitive, so he deprived me of sports. My career choices throughout my life have consisted of being a bouncer, an infantry person, a corrections officer, a fighter, a martial arts instructor, and a dominatrix. So, think about that. I have never really had much interest in a lot of the stereotypically girly things growing up, and the things that I did have an interest in, dress up and sometimes playing with dolls or stuffed animals and things like that, I was permitted to engage in. I don't really feel like I missed out on all that much, and I feel like had I been raised traditionally as a girl, I would have had a lot harder time coming to a place where I'm comfortable now as the woman that I am, that loves to fight, loves to engage in carnal proclivities, loves to lift weights, loves martial arts, is passionate about fitness and sex work. I don't think I would have gotten there had I been raised with traditional feminine values. My parents were very old-fashioned. What has been your favorite part of transitioning so far? Honestly, this is pretty easy. My favorite part of transitioning so far, apart from these, has been experiencing emotion for the first time in my life. And I've heard other trans women describe this similar experience. I've actually heard other transgender people across both sides of the spectrum of the binary describe this going in opposite directions. But testosterone mutes your emotion. You have the big three. You have rage, you have lust, and you have fear. And outside of that, there's nothing. Everything is just dull and muted, and it's like I'm reading a script. Like, I recall some sad events in my life where, as an example, when I found out my parents were getting a divorce, what went through my head was, oh, this is where I'm supposed to cry. And so I cried, and I blew my nose into tissues, and I did all the things you're supposed to do, but if I'd been asked, hey, can you stop that? Yeah. I would have just, there was nothing there. It was empty, a void. And because of that, dealing with depression and not having any kind of emotional relief from that, I was suicidal every day. I was constantly thinking about it. I can't remember a time before I started transitioning that I wasn't. And that's been the biggest change. Going from that silent movie to ultra 4K HD in the experience of emotions. It's phenomenal. What worries you most as a trans person? Watching my government systematically strip me of my civil rights and liberties. Does your family accept you? For the most part, yes. My mother initially had a very negative reaction. She called me a whore and said that I have AIDS. Well, you're only half right, Mom. I don't have AIDS. I lost my spouse because of it. She left me. But we're now friends. Quite good friends, actually. And I think that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to us both, was the dissolution of our marriage. Other than that, my father was very accepting. His response was, you're my child, why do I care? And my sister and my brother-in-law, everyone in my family that I know knows, that I've had conversations with, has been very accepting. My brother, in fact, when I told him, I said, I'm trans. And he said, yeah, and? I said, well, that's my news. I'm transgender and I'm going to transition. He's like, that's not news. That's not, we've been knowing since you were in high school. And I'm like, I wish somebody had given me a memo. I was apparently the last one to know. How has transitioning changed your life? I'm divorced. I'm a divorcee now, which is really nice. It has benefited me because I'm able to connect with my partners now emotionally in a way that I was not able to before. I was just not capable of emotional connection because, like I mentioned before, that muting of emotions, that just not feeling anything. It has opened me up to a much more colorful and vibrant world. It has helped me become more comfortable with who I am and love myself and see a world that has hope in it for the first time. What has surprised you most about transitioning? Periods. Finding out that, one, I have a phantom uterus and it has desires and it tells me you need a baby. Why is there not baby? Why is not baby? And then going from that to, oh, no baby? Good. Suffer. Having to deal with a regular cycle of I'm going about my life and sleeping, and then suddenly at 3 o'clock in the morning, oh my God, these cramps. Oh, I wish I was dead. Yeah. So, periods. That was the thing that I was least expecting, and that surprised the hell out of me. What would have made it easier for you to come out? I think if there'd been a conversation around, I think if the conversation that's happening now around gender had happened when I was a child, when I was in middle school, late elementary school, middle school, high school age, I feel like that would have made a huge difference for me. I would have had a much easier time coming out because as it was, I felt like I was the only person that experienced this dysphoria. I didn't know that was a thing that other people went through. What has been the hardest part of your transition so far? Having to come to terms with the fact that without close to $100,000 worth of major cosmetic surgeries, I will not have the face or the body that I want to have, that I see myself as. And so I'm probably going to spend the rest of my life having to put on large amounts of makeup or fake hair and things like that because it's just not a reasonable expectation that I could afford these things at this point. I would need one or more of my businesses to pick up dramatically for me to be able to consider affording those surgeries. How do you know you're trans? Well, like I said before, there were 1,000 little pieces that looking back were like, oh, how did I not see this? But I think the biggest one was I had a moment when I was driving and it was nighttime, and you know, sometimes when the street lights catch your car just the right way or catch your window just the right way, it reflects it back at you like a mirror. And that happened, and I was looking out my window because I was turning, and that happened, and the face that I saw startled me because I was not expecting to see a man's face, and I didn't realize until that moment that I had a mental picture of myself as a woman. And so it was like, oh, that's me, that's who that is. I didn't realize that. I thought in my head, my brain was, you're a woman. But in a more broad, general sense, I think the best way I've ever heard it put is cisgendered people don't wonder if they're transgender. If you're asking that question, there is a fairly good odds that you are somewhere along the spectrum of transgender. You are either, more than likely, either non-binary transgender or binary transgender. It's a pretty good chance because I've yet to meet a single person that wondered if they were transgender that didn't turn out to be at least non-binary or gender fluid. How does it feel to transition? I lost 40 pounds of lean muscle mass. I grew boobs. I became incredibly emotional, and my sex drive went through the roof. Everything became very sensitive. Very sensitive. Everything. All the time. Like, you touch my shoulder and I'm just like, So dealing with those feelings, physical and emotional, has been just a roller coaster. So it feels like you're living on a roller coaster, but not without any of the like horror or fear. Like it's just all exciting build up, and then just like, oh, it's amazing, oh, this is awesome. And occasionally you're like, oh, this is not what I was expecting, this is a little bit disappointing, or I'm not expecting a lot, and then suddenly it's amazing and phenomenal and you're just surprised to heck. I was not expecting the emotional transition. I had been prepared to lose my sex drive completely, so all those things really just threw me for a loop. How did you tell your family, friends, work, etc.? Well, by that point I was not employed. I had left the sheriff's office and started my own business. So how did I tell work? I was work. That was it. How did I tell my family? I told my dad in a text message. Actually, what I said to my dad specifically was, so I'm sure you've been seeing these things all over Facebook for the last several months. Do you have questions? And he said, you're my child. Why would I care what gender you are? And my ex-wife told my mother, and so I found out that she knew by a text message calling me some nasty name. I told my friends either over text message or over the phone. Yeah, mostly via text message is how I told people, because I suck at phone. I don't like having phone conversations. It makes me very uncomfortable. Are you fully transitioned? Well, that depends on what you mean by fully transitioned. If you're asking if I've had bottom surgery, no, I have not. If you're asking if I'm fully transitioned in the sense that that's actually supposed to meaning, do I live my life 100% of the time as a woman? Yes, I do. I wake up a woman, I go to bed a woman, I stay asleep a woman. I am a woman all day, every day. I don't bounce back and forth. It's just a question of how easily able to tell that are you, or are people outside of me? Because sometimes I just want to put on sweatpants and a t-shirt and go to class, or a panda onesie and go to the grocery store. And I don't feel like putting on makeup or hair. But that goes back to our conversation last time about normalizing all that different stuff. We shouldn't have expectations of what gender looks like for people. Anyway, what's the hardest part of your experience as a trans person? I think the hardest part of my experience as a trans person is dealing with a lot of the ignorance that's out there. I get a lot of people talking behind my back where they know I can hear them, intentionally trying to like slander me or say things like that. Like, I was standing on the street, waiting to cross, and talking on the phone to, or texting on the phone to my ex-boyfriend, and this couple of girls walked by and were like, "So I can't believe the whole class attacked me that way when I said only women get periods." And I'm like, okay, that's not a coincidence that you're having that conversation while you walk past a trans woman. And getting misgendered is hard. So a lot of the bigotry and ignorance, really, from people that aren't informed, or people that think that they're informed when they're not informed, having the conversation over and over again about, well, the science says this. No, actually, the science doesn't say whatever it is you think the science says, because the science says that if you want to try to divide people into a binary, you can't, because there are no less than 5 that I can remember off the top of my head karyotype possibilities. I'm sure there are more, but I can remember 5 off the top of my head. There's XX, XY, X, X, XX, XXY, XYY, and XX. Yeah, okay, so I said 5 at least right now at this point. So there's that. Then there are the parts that can be mixed up, so to speak, all the intersex people that exist in the world. There are the same number of people that are intersex. They have physically going on what I have going on psychologically. And there are the same number of intersex people as there are redheaded people. So if you're going to say that they're not valid and they don't exist, well, guess what? You're also saying neither are redheads. So have fun with that. Enjoy that argument. I'm sure the Prince of England would have some words to say to you. Why not just be a feminine guy or masculine woman? I don't understand the question. I am a masculine woman. I'm kidding. I think that the question is, why not just be like, maintain my masculine, or my, why not just cultivate some feminine qualities and stay a guy? Because I'm not a guy, and that's not what makes sense in my head. That's not what makes sense to me as a person. That's not what feels right in my body. So I'm not a feminine guy. I am a masculine woman. That is just the be-all, end-all of it. Like, I don't tie the things that I do that are not girly to being girly. I wear a lot of makeup. I dress in pretty dresses. I wear fancy corsets. I am prim and proper and a lady when I'm not in the process of being a wanton slattern. And I also enjoy lifting heavy-ass weights. And I enjoy fighting. And I enjoy weapons and guns and war and all these kinds of things that are traditionally the domain of men. And Well, traditionally I say that in our culture, because there are other cultures where those things are a lot more diversified. But that's not the point. How do you think your life would be different if you could have transitioned younger? My facial structure would be very different. My voice would be very different. I guess it depends on what you mean by younger. So if you're talking about like pre-puberty, or if I'd been able to be on puberty blockers, which would have been life-saving, honestly. My frame would be very different. My voice would be very different. My facial structure would be very different. All of these things are a result of the effects that testosterone has on the body. So that's really all things that would be different. I'm living my life the same now as I would be at that point, just probably with a lot more complicated makeup than I would have otherwise had, because I have to make up for the shortcomings of my hormones. What is the best part about being trans? Didn't we ask this already? What is your favorite part about transitioning? The best part about being trans? Okay, so this is a little bit of a different question, but I think the best part about being trans is that I get to say that not only am I my partner's big titty goth girlfriend, I'm also their big dick goth Domme mommy. That's my favorite part about being trans. I think that's the best part. Get you a girl that can do both. Have you had any surgeries? Are you going to? No, I have not. Maybe, if I can afford them. I would love to. If you would like to finance me, by all means, please do. Because I don't think I'm going to be able to afford them on my own. But yeah, they're expensive, and I would love to have them. I'd love to have vocal cord surgery so I could have a more feminine voice. I'd love to have facial feminization surgery so I didn't have to rely so heavily on obscene amounts of contour and eye makeup. How can I make things better for you? Vote for politicians that will not push legislation that strips me of my civil rights. You can create safe spaces for trans people. Really, changing the socio-political climate is about the only thing that you can do to make it better for me. I don't care about my safety. I don't worry about walking down the street and being attacked. I'm a weapon. I have done things in life that most people who would want to attack a transgender woman in the street can't even comprehend. There is blood on my hands. And so I don't worry about that. I teach a self-defense class. I don't worry about it. But there are lots of others that do. And it's not safe for us. It's not a safe world for us. Whenever we walk into a bathroom, there's a danger that we could get attacked. Whenever we're walking down the street alone at night, which incidentally, as a self-defense instructor, let me say, that's a bad idea for anybody. Don't walk down the street alone at night. Plain and simple. Groups, crowds, 2 or more at least. Anyway, create safe spaces. It's not enough to say that you support transgender people and wave a flag and say that you support us. If you claim support and then vote for politicians that seek to strip us of our rights and liberties, you're not supporting. If you claim to support trans people and you eat at Chick-fil-A, or you shop at Hobby Lobby, or you endorse by your patronage any of these businesses that disenfranchise us, you're not supporting trans people. It's lip service. It's meaningless. And you need to understand that. Don't spend your money on companies that treat us like trash. Don't vote for politicians that treat us like trash. What are you most excited about in your transition? All the things that I'm excited about in my transition have already happened, at least short of surgeries. Everything else has already taken place, and I'm just tickled pink by all of it. What's non-binary? I suppose I should have addressed this earlier when I was talking about it, but non-binary. So essentially, there are 2 categories within the umbrella. There are 2 umbrella terms, smaller umbrellas within the larger umbrella of being transgender. There are binary transgender people like me, trans women and trans men that have a very clear, I'm a woman. I'm not like well, sometimes I'm a woman and sometimes I'm a man, or I don't feel like I belong to either one, or anything like that. That is not me. No shade or disrespect to the people that do feel that. By all means, that's not me. I very clearly feel that I'm a woman, and that's called binary transgender. And then there's non-binary transgender, which is when your gender falls somewhere along the spectrum between male and female, between man and woman. Before I came out, it was easier for my brain to accept the idea that I was non-binary than that I was trans. And so I used to often describe to people that my gender was somewhere between Xena Warrior Princess and Theodore Roosevelt. Not quite a girl, not quite a guy, but I'm definitely going to play waist. But that's essentially non-binary. There's non-binary, there's genderqueer, gender fluid, and all these terms that basically mean people sit between the spectrum of gender. Because gender is a spectrum, we know this now. We've seen the science, we've seen the psychology that says that that's the case, and that you can't really argue with it. You can't say that there's only two genders. There aren't. There aren't. There haven't been in human history. The Greeks had something like 48, if I recall from my literature class 10 years ago. There are countless cultures throughout the world that have had more than just men and women. And we need to respect that. We need to acknowledge that. It's not a new thing. It's been around since the earliest days of human existence. It's even present in animals. What do you wish you could tell younger you as a trans person? The lottery numbers. I wish I could tell younger me that it's okay to explore your gender. It's okay to not feel like you fit in your body. That I'm not alone. That I don't have to feel like I need to squish myself into a box that doesn't fit for me. So that's all the questions that they have on here. But the last question is, I want to ask you another question, or ask me anything. So if you have any questions that you want me to answer on my Transition Tuesdays, feel free to drop a comment below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe at the bottom of this video so that I can continue to make them. And you guys have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.